Welcome, esteemed guests, to the Darkstone Dossiers with your host, Anthony Darkstone.
Buonasera a tutti. Bonsoir. Bonne nuit. Buenas noches. Guten Abend. And a very good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you may be joining us on the planet. Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. I first met him, oh my gosh, probably nowhere had just about finished building the Ark. That's a long while ago. How that happened, and if you want to know the full story, I'll share it with you, but I'll just keep it brief now, was my brother, who was younger, loves magic. He doesn't do magic. He'd never been to Vegas, so I took him to Vegas for my 50th birthday, and that coincided with some other things I was doing. He was also a great fan of dear Eugene Berger. Blessings for his memory. So I rang up Eugene. I said to him, listen, this is what we're doing. Any chance you're going to be there? He said, well, if you come in, I'll definitely be there. If you knew Eugene, you will know how he was. My guest is nodding because obviously he knew Eugene pretty much as well as most folks, or anybody, not most folks. So we put this together as a bit of a surprise for my brother. So Christian Diamond, another name that my guest will know, who's my brother from a different mother, also a wonderful magician, and used to get involved with Wonderground with Jeff McBride, etc. back in the day. We all turned up at P.F. Chang's, which was one of Eugene's favorite restaurants in Las Vegas. I'll tell you the whole story another time. But basically, much to my delight, at the table, I thought it was just going to be Eugene. But Eugene loved mischief almost as much as I do, maybe more. At the table was Larry Hass, Bob Neal, and my guest. You can only imagine what that evening was like. So I don't care what happens to me in magic. That is one of my top 3 memories. Absolutely delightful. And that's where I first met my guest. How do I best describe my guest? Raconteur, as you will find out. Author, as you will find out. The man behind the scenes, so to speak, in more ways than one. So I'll ask you to please welcome my guest for this evening, Mr. Tobias Beckwith. Hello, Tobias. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you, Anthony. So good to see you. And boy, I remember that like it was yesterday. And you were around for a week or so, so you got to hang out with us at Jeff McBride's home, and we I think we were in the midst of a master class or something.
I vaguely recall that because what was that another time? I think there was a time when I was, you jogged my memory on something. It was another time when Jeff asked me to go have lunch with him because it was it when I was lecturing in Vegas? I can't remember. Yes, I was, but not magic. I was doing a talk on Rosslyn Chapel, which is quite apart from magic. I'm very much into various esoteric topics. So it was, about Rosslyn Chapel. There's a long story behind how I got to do that, but I won't bore you with it now. And Jeff turned up. I had met him before previously. Where did I meet him before? Oh, yes, dear Joni Spinner, blessings for her memory. She introduced me to him at AJ's house, the amazing Jonathan, at a Halloween party. And anyway, Jeff comes to it, and the first thing he says to me, he says, this better be good, because do you know XYZ is a friend of mine? And I said, yes, I know him, and he edits the magazine. And he said, oh, really? This better be good. Well, cut a long story short, sorry, this is not about me, it's about Tobias. Cut a long story short, he sat there in the front. Oh, he gave me a CD from dear Abigail, who I'm probably more friends with than I am with Jeff, because of Abigail and I share esoteric and, in inverted commas, spiritual things that we like. Anyway, he gave me her CD, and I think I still got it around somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, this one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there it is. That one. Anyway, he sits there in the front row. There's Paul Vigil, who was Lupe Nielsen, quite a lot of names. And I thought, well, they won't be interested. It's not a lecture on magic. But they all came, thank you, and it was really wonderful. Jeff
Mhm.
sat there and he took 43 pages of notes.
Mhm.
Now, Jeff was a note taker, 43 pages. And he
Yes.
came up to me afterwards and he said, listen, are you free for lunch tomorrow? I said, I don't know. I have no idea what I'll be doing. You have to talk to Christian because he's organizing everything. So Christian said, yeah, no problem. What do you want to do? And Jeff said, come over to the house. So Christian and I go over to the
Uh-huh.
house. He picks up the phone. He said, what kind of food do you like? I said, I love Chinese and Oriental food. And he said, great, done. And he picked up the phone and he calls up his favorite restaurant. And I always remember this. He picks him up. Yes, that's right. This is the magician. He doesn't say his name. He said, this is the magician. And he orders all this stuff. And he said, well, I'm going to have to throw you guys out at 4 o'clock because I got to go get ready. And then I got to go get a plane because I'm off to China or somewhere.
Mhm.
That was Jeff. No, okay. Anyway, enough of my stories.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about our guests to today. I'm glad we got the schedules together and were able to get Tobias in from a personal and professional viewpoint. Why? Well, the man by training is an actor. He has been involved in magic in one form or another. Again, probably since Noah got the plans to build the ark. So he knows a fair amount about a fair amount. Part of that fair amount is that he spent, I think, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, about 30 years managing Jeff McBride. Now, that's not just picking up the phone and arranging bookings. Uh, there's a lot more to it than that. And then also back in the day, not so long ago, Marco Tempest, the names many of you will know from Switzerland. I'm going to ask Tobias to talk to us a little bit about this role of managing people such as Marco Tempest and Jeff McBride, what it entails. Rather humbly, he will say, oh, yeah, I'm just the man behind the scenes. Well, actually, no, it's a lot more than just the man behind the scenes. So over to you, Tobias. So if you'd be kind enough to just share with us what some of that role entailed back in the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I people used to ask me, so what does a manager do? Would you manage me? And I said, every manager in magic does completely different thing. It's like a producer. What does a produce? Well, some of them raise money, some of them hire the cast, some of them cast people, some of them choose properties, some of them, there's a lot of different things you do. In my case, I came over from the theater and I loved doing everything in the theater, but I had just spent 10 years managing Broadway shows. And when you're a manager on Broadway, you manage, you write checks, you write contracts, you do this. But God forbid you give an actor a note. God forbid you pick up something backstage because that's somebody else's job. So it was very limiting. And part of what got me into the theater was the love of being able to work backstage, to be a stage manager, to be a lighting designer, to design sets. My MFA is as a director in the theater, and I couldn't do that. But suddenly I met this guy, Jeff McBride, and wanted to build a show with him and produce it. And he said, "Oh, you can design lights? Design my lights. Oh, you can help me with you can give me notes and help me be a bit better. So yes, direct me. Oh, you can do this, you can do that." And I said that I don't want to be a manager because a manager is like an agent, and we all heard the terrible stories about agents. He says, "No, no, I don't need you to do that. I am established enough. I've had enough awards. I've toured with Diana Ross and Tina Turner. Work comes in. And but I need someone I can trust, somebody that can help me build my show, somebody that can be my partner in this business." And I still describe it as, the man behind the curtain. If you don't see Jeff doing it on stage, that's me backstage doing it. I'm stage managing and calling cues. I'm out there writing lighting cues. I'm helping hire the crew and teach them the stage moves. It's kind of a large package. And I don't really know anybody that did that, but it was a passion for me. It was a total joy for both working with both Jeff and Marco Tempest, and partly because they were, to me, two magicians who really got it. That magic is not a real, yes, it's about tricks. Tricks are the biggest tool you have, the thing that sets you aside from other forms of theater, but magic is theater. Magic's about telling a story. Even if you don't tell a story, your audience takes the story away. Well, that pimply faced kid came up and fanned a deck of cards and dropped three of them and asked me to take one. And he did. That's a story. He might not tell you a story, but the audience is going to take away a story. You're still doing theater and you can make it better. You can give it a better structure. You can give it a better script. You can costume it better. Everything you can do, you can make more effective by using the tools of the theater. And Jeff and I hit it off right away. Tony and I were talking earlier. Who were we talking about? Oh, Christina, and
Mm,
how she
yes.
had spent months learning to fence before she would do the card stab on stage. People go, "Oh, I'll imitate Jeff McBride. I'll pretend to be a mime." No, Jeff went to a year and a half of mime school in New York City to the American Mime School. He wanted to do it right. He wanted to really understand it. He was headlining at a big nightclub in Tokyo and pretending to do kabuki. And one night, the woman who owned the nightclub took him by the hand and said, "Let me introduce you to somebody," and took him out into the audience to introduce him to the star of the kabuki theater there in Tokyo, who said, "You should come to my school tomorrow. I want you to learn to do this right." And every year for the next 3 years, Jeff spent a month in Tokyo performing at night and going to kabuki school in the afternoon, so that what he would do would be authentically informed by the art form that he was combining into his magical performances. And this was one of the things that he and I hit it off right away, because he wanted magic to be a magical experience. He didn't just want to do tricks. And it was the same with Marco Tempest. We got together and he was just beginning to do technology in magic. And there for a couple of years, he wouldn't let me call him a magician on his webpage. He said, "No, I'm a digital poet and storyteller who uses design and video and the latest technology and illusion art to make a model of what the near future can look like, might look like." So we were doing virtual reality on stage, faking it, using illusions before it was mainstream. We were doing image mapping on stage to create things. He was doing, you've seen the videos of the drone shows in China now where they have the giant dragons dancing.
Hmm.
Well, he was doing that with 25 small drones and working with the teams trying to figure out how to make them behave together and act like they were alive. So he had to reinvent everything, but he understood that, yes, the tricks are great and I love the tricks and I love the technology, but it's about telling a story. It's about modeling an experience for an audience.
Well,
And
this
not
is,
enough
sorry.
magicians
Mm.
really seem to get that to me. So I was
Well,
very lucky to find two who did.
you're absolutely right, because as I've often mentioned to my students over the years, Meryl Streep and Tom Cruise know how to act. A good director, Martin Scorsese or whoever the director may be,
Mhm.
will work with them and tell them what to act
Yeah.
rather than, how. They know that. They've read the script. They know all of that. And
Yes.
as you absolutely wonderfully quoted, dear, dear, wonderful, lovely Eugene, all magic is theatre. Now,
Mhm.
I've had that back in the day when I lectured at the Magic Circle. I mentioned that in a lecture, and then somebody came up to me afterwards and sort of said, "Oh, wow, that's great." And then a couple other people came up and said, "Yeah, but Anthony, I just do stroll around magic, and well, that's your theatre."
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
table and those 2, 3, or 6 people at that table, that is your theater.
Hmm.
I'll tell you someone else that we all know, and I've spent time with him, and we worked together in Israel on the Magic at the Red Sea convention. And well, geez, blessings for his memory. And he and Eugene were great friends, and that was Max Maven.
Oh, yes.
He understood theater
Completely. Yes.
totally. I'll tell you what, I've marked this deliberately, and this would be a good time for me to do it. This is from Tobias's book, which we'll be talking about in his other books, Wired for Wonder. Let me just, I'll read it because I don't want to get it wrong. Magic is about engaging the imagination of the audience. And like acting, it requires the ability to create a believable character. That
Hmm.
was Max Maven. Now,
Yeah.
you know, the man practiced what he preached. He did.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Because, I mean, there's so many other people that we can quote, and Tobias has in his various books. But I think we recently had some discussions, I think, where Stephen was at these discussions, and I believe Paul was there as well, where it's not just how well can you do a chop cup routine or the cups and balls. It's who are you when you're doing it? People go, what do you mean?
Exactly.
Who am I? I'm me. I said, well, nobody wants to pay money for you to be you. Guy doesn't walk on with a t-shirt and a pair of jeans and go, I'm Spartacus. No, Kirk Douglas got into costume and had a script. That's how he
Yes.
became, and to quote him, I love this quote from him, it's not my job to convince myself that I'm Spartacus. It's my job to convince them out there that I am Spartacus. And he was damn good at it, and whatever he did.
Yeah.
Uh, as there are, many of this. So I'd like to take you to expand a little bit on this performing character. I know, we could be here till Christmas 2027 or
Sure.
28 talking about performance and performing characters. I'd like you to share with us, Tobias, some of your sage and empirical experiences of how this comes about from theater, the translation into magic, and then eventually the giving of that to an audience.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I studied magic, or studied acting for quite a long time, 6 years throughout undergraduate and graduate school. And I took a lot of classes that made no sense to me at the time. Pretend you're floating on a cloud, you're this, you're that. And I'm going, why am I doing this?
Mm.
And it wasn't until 40, 50 years later, I heard Meryl Streep talking on in the Actors Studio thing. And she said, well, it's not about creating a character, it's about finding a character within yourself. And to do that, you really have to know yourself. Well, at 18 or 19 or whatever I was, I didn't know myself. I was not about to admit I was having the emotions that I was having, let alone reveal them to other people just because that's who I was. But in the last 8 or 10 years, I'm in my 70s now, I find myself doing a lot of, oh, that's what it feels like to feel that. Oh, I could express that. It would be okay. Oh, and in the same time, I just took a professional acting job a year or so ago for the first time in 40 years. And it was suddenly much easier. The one thing that did hit me back in college and that then was reinforced, I got to be friends with Bobby Lewis, who was one of the founders of the group theater in New York, and later on was actually Meryl Streep's acting teacher at Yale. He said, it's all about what you want. Acting is called acting because you're taking action and you're taking a particular kind of action. I want this and you're trying to stop me. And I'm going to do what it takes to get past you. And if you simplify it down to that, beat by beat, moment by moment, you're creating drama because that's what drama is. It's this action and then that action, and either I win this one or I lose it. If I lose it, I've got to try a different direction. And by the end of the play, maybe I'm Hamlet and I die and it's tragedy, or, maybe I'm in Midsummer Night's Dream and we all get married. And it's comedy. But we've all tried to get things. So this guy Craig Mazin, who's a screenwriter, he wrote the series Chernobyl and a bunch of not great. He said, I don't understand why people have trouble with character. Character is about what's the biggest thing that this person wants and what are they willing to do to get it. Now put them in a situation and just beat them up until they find their way through and what they really will do and what they won't do, and they either get it or not at the end. That's how you build a character. And it works.
Yes, it does.
I mean, we like to put on funny character voices and physicalities, and that is helpful. But it comes down to what do you want in the moment?
Absolutely. Or as a magician, or indeed as any performing artist, what you want to share, would you say, with your audience? Because there are times when I've written an article and spent time with him, as you know, in New Orleans, with as Paul knows, with dear John Rockefeller. He's gone now, sadly, blessings for his memory, about building this fourth wall and bringing it down. I don't know, and I will stand corrected, but I don't know of any other performing art other than magic where you could put the fourth wall up and bring it down as you wish.
Exactly.
How wonderful is that to be able to do?
I hadn't thought about that till I was working on this book, and it hit me in the middle of the night one night. There is no other. First of all, theater is the only art where the artist and the audience interact directly. There is no sheet of film. There is no canvas, and I paint it today, and you look at it 20 years from now. None of that. It's here and now, and the artist gets the response. But magic is the only part of theater that creates this imaginary world, and you're watching it, and suddenly the magician says, you come up here. Now you're part of the story, and we invite them in to this magical world. And what can you do with that? What possibilities does that open up? I've only begun to think about it, but it's fascinating. I remember clearly Paul Harris was famous for not performing for a while. And he came to one of our mystery schools, and I got to drive him from New York City out to Sherman, New York, which is about a 6-hour drive. So he was my prisoner in the car, and I got to ask him questions. And he was famous for his house having burned down, and he swore off performing. I said, I need to know the story. Why? What happened to you? And he said, well, I got really good. I got to the point that I could hurt someone's brain. I would do a trick and people would jump up and go, and bang their head against the wall. And he said, I understood how powerful that moment was when their world, their version of reality falls apart for a minute. And I had no idea what to do with it. I would make a bad joke. It was entertainment, but I could see how powerful that moment can be. And we've all seen it. You do the thing with the bug that appears on the back of their hand and they scream, or even, the card that turns into another card and people go, oh! And for the split second, everything they believed they knew about what reality is falls apart. Usually it comes right back together, and that's great, but that's a powerful moment, and it's important to think about it, I think.
Absolutely, because I'm not plugging anything. Well, yeah, I guess I am. Everybody up here's probably got a copy already. This we put out a little while back, Magical Meditations from Association Magiciens Internationaux. It has 13 contributors in it, and there's a reason I'm bringing this up. Michael Bildschent, Bill Merlin Palmer, Scott Grossberg, who quotes from many of the greats in his article, Hal Saxon, Todd Landman, Kenton Nepper, Brian Rollet, Beverly Susan, yours truly, myself, Kathleen Hawkins, Arthur Tivoli, who's president of ME, James Fagley, and Mark Williams. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because you jog my memory, because my piece in there is actually called Getting Out of Your Way. Now, I have to be very honest and open here. Like many magicians, I thought it was all about performing. I did a fairly good job of it too.
Hmm.
But what I didn't learn till probably when I was about 30 something years ago, when I was in my 40s, was I was performing at them and not to them. And
Yeah.
in many ways saying, look at me. Here I am, a beautiful David carved by Michelangelo. And people
Yes.
would say, wow, what a sculpture. But that was not the purpose of the sculpture. And the reason that happened to me, and I won't take up a lot of time because you're my guest and I want you to talk. I was about 40-ish and I did the whole thing, with the cape and all this kind of, Waka Nyala type stuff and everything.
Hmm.
And my on one particular performance we were booked to do, and my son looked at me and went, Dad. I said, yeah. He said, nah. I said, what? He said, nah. And he doesn't do magic now, but he's pretty good. As you know, he's won a few things along the way. Uh, I said, what's wrong with it? He said, nothing except one thing. And I said, what's that? He said, Dad, you're moving like a 45-year-old man. Oh. Now, it doesn't matter. I've done stunt work in the movies. I was a martial artist. It doesn't matter. I'm fairly fit, all that kind of thing. But my body behind this cloak and all the, kind of thing was betraying me. And that's when I realized I got to get out of my way. I've got to understand what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
And even more importantly, do I really need to do it or find something else? As I get older, I'm toying with the idea. I perform as three different characters, but as I get much older, I'm toying with the idea of actually doing something with an old guy, actually doing an old guy type stuff, who's got a
Yeah.
bad back. Yes, I have. My knees are gone. Yes, I have. Have I fallen off a horse
Mm.
recently? Yes, I have, which is one of the reasons why you see me squirming a little bit. So I'm thinking, well, why not use that as my performing character? Why not
Yeah.
use that? So really, this getting out of the way, which you touched on, I think is important. You mentioned about a young lady who sort of came up in magic, like my son. She's a medical doctor now, and someone
Hmm.
Tobias, Christina Hulsted from Norway. I mean, I worked with her in Norway. We did some really great stuff. And as you rightly pointed out, she did the card sword on stage to be applauded by no less than dear Pat Page and Ali Bongo, because I brought her over when we did the big gig up in Scotland. It was a card sword on stage. The actual effect itself wasn't particularly brilliant, especially if you're a magician. You kind of went, yeah, I know. But the way she did it is within the context of a sort of Spanish type character with the sombrero. She had the right shoes of a flamenco dancer, the right shoes. Flamenco dancers wear special shoes. And she
Hmm.
had that. So when the card sword happened, it's amazing. And as you rightly pointed out, she took 6 months of fencing lessons for what? 30 seconds on stage?
Hmm.
30 seconds on stage. It no longer became, well, my chosen card's on the end of a sword. It became an experience for the audience.
Yeah.
They were like, wow. There was
Yeah.
nothing like, how did she do that? How did the card get there? Nothing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds ridiculous, but I'll say it. Perfect perfection.
Yeah.
But the card appeared.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. And
you,
and it felt real because
yes,
she moved like a fencer. She
yes,
had the motivations of a fencer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And so you believe her as a character then,
yes.
instead of somebody pretending to be a character.
Well,
There's a
um,
fine line where it becomes real.
I'd like you to expand a little bit on that because a lot of magicians, not all, but a lot,
Mhm.
of magicians. I mean, you and I know some of them, sadly, or we've seen them.
Oh, yes.
Um, they'll come on and they'll do something fairly good and it's acceptable, and you'll get
Hmm.
what I call the golf clap. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it went in the hole, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they don't get this. Okay, you took one shot and it went straight in the hole.
Yeah.
uh,
Exactly.
so, and,
Mhm.
I try to drum this into to people, especially my students, when I say, no, it's not about that. It's about making yourself believable, and ergo what you do believable, as you rightly said, Tobias, even
Mhm.
if it's for a split second or two or
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
It's wow, it's not the ace of spades anymore, it's a nine of hearts, or vice versa. For that.
Right.
So could you expand a little bit more on
But
that? The focus of
well,
how characters in magic
yeah.
need
Yes,
to
and
be.
you touched on something else that is related, and this is kind of a roundabout answer. But you talked about I found myself performing at the audiences. And Bob Fitch was the one, as a magician, who showed
Oh,
me
yeah.
this and taught it. He came into a class one day, he said, eye contact. You're all taught to make eye contact. You scan this and you scan that and you scan that, and you never make real contact. You're pretending to make contact. I don't want you to do that. I want you to deliver this line into that person's eyes and wait until you get a response from them. And then go on and deliver it to the person in that person and get a response and see how they respond, because it's a two-way thing. And if you're not getting the response, you're not really connecting. And once you do start to connect, you start to really respond back. So you smile at me, I go, oh, great, you got it. And now we're connected. Now it's a real connection. It's not a fake connection. And it's really hard to learn that until
Mm.
suddenly it snaps and you go, oh, I got it. And your magic changes overnight.
I think it's one word that perfectly summarizes what Bob Fitch was talking about, and it's just his word. He used it. And I remember in a discussion we were having some years ago, and he spoke about the lighthouse. He says it doesn't move, but the beam does, and it covers everything.
Yeah.
And that's your job. Whether you're working at a table, on a stage, or in parlor, that's your job. You're to just
Mhm.
get round that room to make that momentary, but
Get the energy out
important.
there
Yes,
and
yes,
make it a real connection.
yes,
Because if I connect with you and I get a response, 10 people on either side of you feel like I responded to them too.
yes, yes.
And then I respond to someone and they feel like it. And now there's something going on back and forth. The magic is there, the story is there, but more important, we're sharing the story together. It's that thing I talked about that theater does that nothing else can do. An actor in a film cannot respond to his audience because they're not there. The
Yes,
camera's there. They can pretend, but they can perform their character flawlessly with deep emotion and whatever, but it's a different art form. And the magic of magic is that it is live. If you see it on TV, it's a film of somebody performing magic for an audience. It's not the same thing. And
absolutely. I mean, there's so much in this book. It's amazing. I want to talk about. I'll just read something from chapter 5, if I may,
Mhm.
which, not that it needs emphasizing, but it kind of does. These are your words in your book. Theater is a collaborative art. Even if you see yourself as one person operation, there are many jobs to be done in order to make a theatrical experience come together. Key words: come together. Here's a description of some of those jobs as done in traditional theatre. You might be working in a different situation, but learning these roles and why they're needed will help you take care of the functions in almost any situation you may find yourself. And then you go on to list the roles, lighting, director, and so
Right,
on.
right.
And I think anyone who's any good at performing arts, especially magic, needs a mentor, or at the very least, a trusted director.
Hmm.
Because no matter how good the technology is, guess what? Doesn't matter how many mirrors you got, you're still going to see yourself subjectively. Doesn't matter how many times
Absolutely.
you film yourself on the
Right.
phone and you got that move down pat. Great. You're
Right.
never going to see what a director sees ever
Exactly.
objectively. This is why people like Clint Eastwood, when they direct movies, when they're shooting a scene, they'll have or rehearsing a scene about to be shot, they'll have a stand-in come in and do it
Hmm.
because he knows he's going to be in that scene later, and he has to watch everything. If he's direct, that's one of the toughest things to do. I learned that
Yeah.
earlier on. Never ever produce a show and perform in it.
Hmm.
No, I learned that.
It's
It took two times for it to happen, but after that I went, no friggin' way.
exactly.
Can't happen. You got to be one or the other. Produce it, direct it, or whatever, or perform in it, and leave all the other issues to someone else. Because
Yeah.
there's no way in the world you can go on and perform with somebody talking to you about their lighting, their microphone, their something else, or whatever. It freaks you out. It
Yeah.
freaks you out. I I I.
Absolutely.
I want to. That brings us very neatly to something I want to ask you about here.
Okay.
And I'm quoting from your book. Mastery is when everything that can go wrong has gone wrong and you've learned how to deal with it.
I stole that
AKA,
line from Jeff McBride.
yeah, AKA Murphy's Law, which,
Yeah.
as you know, Tobias, applies to so many things. Well, to everything.
Yeah.
But you know what? Its personal favorite is magic. You want
I
to,
think so. There's
yeah,
more that can go wrong.
but yeah,
Yeah.
you name it. I want, and I urge everyone to watch this. Doesn't matter what kind of performing artist you are. I mean, look it up on YouTube. It's Stevie Vaughan, and it's on
Mm.
YouTube. He's in the middle of something, and the guitar string breaks.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil it. You have to look it up and find it and watch it.
Yeah.
Watch it a few times, and then it's going to click. Yes, they hand him another guitar later on, but it's between when the string breaks and the other guitar comes on. And when the other guitar comes on, he picks it up, they hook him up, and he just carries on like nothing ever happened.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
There's another clip from, I think, Prince, where the same thing happened to
I've not seen that. No, I've
in
not
the
seen that.
middle of a solo, and he
Hmm.
just continued.
Yeah.
Didn't miss a beat.
I mean, I had one I remember on TV. Luckily, I'd finished my bit, and they'd gone on to the next thing on TV, doing whatever was a live show, not pre-recorded or anything. And my deck fell. And of course, all the three of diamonds were scattered across the floor because I used a one-way deck.
Hmm.
And I remember the floor manager and somebody else. I mean, this is off camera, thank goodness. Yeah, kind of went, how did you change all of them? And I kind of went, oh, yeah. Quick, gather it all up and take off.
Always take credit.
Well, oh, yeah, yeah. Always take credit for anything. Who was it? Was it Doug Henning, where something went wrong with a bird and he tripped and he did a somersault and ended up sitting? I think it was Doug Henning. I could be wrong.
Might
I'll
have been.
stand corrected. Sat on the edge of the stage, and this damn bird went up and landed back on his finger. It was like, oh yeah, yeah, great Doug Henning. Hey,
Right.
yeah, great. Oh, that was it. Those of us who sort of know about stuff. I mean, birds.
Right.
Me personally, never would work with them. Yeah, I used to have battles with with my son Charles, and finally convinced him never to bother with birds. But
Good.
anyway, that's another story. I want to take you to this Murphy's Law because thanks to you, I learned something very, 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 very important. Doesn't matter if you're on and off planes and security checks and all the rest. That brings a whole thing that the audience
Mhm.
never sees or gets to see, and doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's part of the job. Or even if you're just loading up your car and going somewhere, always take a spare. Yeah, where's mine? Oh yeah, there it is. I mean, I know Jeff uses a spectacle case. This is mine. Two 45-minute shows. It's on my
Yeah.
belt. doesn't matter what happens. I've got it.
Yeah.
I figured out a way of how to make a table no matter where I fall over and land, or
Yeah.
whatever goes missing. But the thing I learned from you is, I don't know about everybody, but a lot of my pals who are in the business for a long while make lists, make
Hmm.
lists, make lists. Don't rely on your phone or write it down, make lists.
Yeah.
And thanks to you, I added two things onto my list: a wire coat hanger and duct tape. I
Well,
want to talk to you about that.
another lesson I learned from Jeff McBride, because when we first started working together, I didn't
Mm,
know a lot about magic.
mhm,
And so I would hang out with him backstage and help him unpack and
mhm,
repack the show
mhm.
afterwards. And one night he got about halfway packed and he went, "Oh shit." I said, "What?" "I didn't bring the hook that hangs my rings on the back of my table." And he happened to have, he didn't have a coat hanger, but there was one in the dressing room and he had a roll of gaffer's tape. He said, "Here, make me a hook." And I had seen the hook that he had and I made him one that worked. Well, he used that hook for about 6 years because it perfectly did the job. The audience never saw it.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter if they don't see it and it works, who cares? But
that's
it's
right.
got to work. And his thing was if give me a couple coat hangers and a gaffer's tape, I can give you a magic show. I can make half of the things that get used in my show out of out of that. And so we never travel without them.
Yeah, they're always on my list, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, those two items. And
Yeah.
have I had need for them? Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
And it was great education for me because I had
yeah,
done all kinds of theater, but not magic. And I didn't know
yeah,
how to zigzag fold a streamer. I didn't know,
yeah. Needle
half the
and
things he
cotton,
did.
safety
Yeah,
pins, rubber bands.
yeah,
Nothing to do with the act.
right.
Nothing to do with it.
But
There's,
we told that story to Bob Fitch, who
mm,
was still directing Jeff's show at the time. He
mm,
said, "Jeff, you need systems." And this I've taught, especially in my business book. You have a checklist for packing and a checklist for when you leave the theater or you can do what Marco Tempest did, which he would get a photographer's case with, with the foam in them where you and he would cut out a space for each of his props. So he could open the case and go, "There's an empty space. Oh,
right.
that's for such and such." And didn't have to have it written, but it was written in foam, as it were. And the more you gig, the more you need that.
Oh,
And
very much so. Yeah.
we were talking about, theater's a collaboration. I came when I did Beyond Applause, my book on running a business as a
Hmm.
magician. I had a lecture at FISM 6 years ago, whatever it was now in Quebec, on that book. And what came to me was it's just an extension of your show. Everything you do is the way you do everything. So the way you run your business needs to be the way you run your show. You need to, it expresses as much about you to the people who hire you as the actual show does. So you need a nice clean contract that doesn't look like you're trying to get something by them, that you need marketing materials that actually tells them what they're getting, not just how great you are. You need all of these things that reflect the kind of show you do and the kind of you're building an experience that is your show, but it's bigger than your show. And I think that was the thing that I brought to Jeff and Marco more than anything of my other strengths was that sense of everything we do represents us.
Yes.
When we call a taxi in the morning, that represents us. When somebody calls our box office, they get a certain answer. When they called my office, they got a certain kind of an answer and response. And that's so important to if you're a professional, to your whole life becomes your magic show in a way.
Well, yes, because I think also this applies to, I mean, I don't really care for the term. never have done, but I can't think of another one to substitute it. Semi-professional. It always smacks to me like you're kind of only halfway being a
Right.
professional. I like to think, doesn't matter who you are, what you do, even a hobbyist, you're professional because you're
Yeah.
representing the art. You're representing the art. If
Yeah.
you're just doing one effect, by golly, you better make sure it's damn good because
Yeah.
you are representing the art.
Yes.
So, but anyway, that's a pet kind of peeve of mine. Now that we have all this wonderful technology, and we've all experienced it, and it comes up on my feed, there's some guy in his
Mm.
kitchen, not even his living room, probably the cat sitting on the counter, and
Right.
he's putting this out for people to see.
Right.
Dude, I don't care what you do, I'm never going to hire you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. That's your image. It's just gone.
Yeah.
You know, uh, carry in on the lists of what we do. I mean, I do anyway. Toothbrush. I have a ritual before going on.
Hmm.
Part of that ritual is brushing my teeth, whether I need to or not. The other
Yeah.
part of that ritual is not eating or drinking for at least 3 or 4 hours. I may have a little sip of water, like the boxers
Sure.
do in the ring, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Right? Um, Nail brush, because there's nothing worse. There's quite a famous
Yeah.
guy in Vegas. I had a magician friend of mine go to see his show. I didn't see it, but he was recounting it to me, and I won't mention the gentleman's name, but it was taken from a character of Charles Dickens, his show.
Mhm.
And he said it came on, and there was close-ups of him doing something, and it looked like he'd just been working on his car. You wouldn't
Mhm.
expect that from this major
Right.
name,
Yeah.
but that's what it was. I said, "You're kidding?" He said, "No, I'm not." He said, "That immediately stuck out to me." I think
Yeah.
it was Oscar Munoz many years ago. He didn't win the gold cups at the IBM because one of the cups was tarnished or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, is that being anal? Is that being overtly meticulous? Well, maybe. But as far as I'm concerned, if you haven't done everything to get it just right, obviously there are things out of your control that you can't control, like Murphy's Law,
Sure.
as we were saying. But I think it behoves every performing artist to make sure that everything is there. I mean,
Yeah. Absolutely.
a deck of cards that looks like it's been used, 6 times or 400 times on a submarine in a card game.
Right.
No, get
Unless you're
every
telling a story about something that happened on a subway on a submarine,
yeah, and then you say,
and
well,
then yeah, this
we
is the
didn't,
very deck.
yeah, we didn't surface for 6 months, so we've been really using. Then it makes sense.
Then
But
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the context of everyday stuff, no, make sure your cards are clean,
Yeah.
whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, for years, people have
There's a word for it that I just came up with in one of the quotes that I post online sometimes. Cognitive dissonance.
yes, yes, good,
If I'm
good
Charles
phrase.
Dickens performing, pretending to perform for a 19th century audience of English gentlemen, and I pull out a box that's in primary colors and has fake Chinese characters on it, somebody's going to go, that
No,
doesn't fit.
uh,
And while they're doing that, they're going to miss something that you wanted them to see because of the cognitive dissonance.
yes, I
There's
think
something.
that's a wonderful phrase. I'm glad you kind of brought that up because most of us know this already because we've been around. But any audience, I don't care where you are, which country you are, they're not stupid. And my take is that a magician's job is not to fool them. Yes, I know that's the name of a famous show with TNT. And the reason for
Right.
that name, basically, it's not a show for magicians, it's a show for ratings for CNW. And the bigger the
Exactly.
ratings, the better the channel, and well, because they can sell more airtime. Okay, that's a whole different business subset. But audiences are the same people who go to, football games, soccer games,
Hmm.
watch movies, buy cereal from the supermarket. They're subjected to billions of dollars and pounds and slotties and yen for all these things, from the psychology of color, the psychology of words, to market a product or products to them.
Mm-hmm.
My take, again, I'll stand corrected, hold my hands up if I'm wrong. They're the same people watching your show.
Yeah.
Why don't you subject them to the same thing that billions and trillions have been spent on over the years, over the centuries, if you like, to convince somebody, that opening a box and tossing some cornflakes out of it and pouring milk on is a good healthy breakfast? Well, it may well be, or not, but it has convinced people. Why? Because literally millions have been spent on telling people, taking that
Mm-hmm.
cognitive recognition, and then we, as magicians, to use your phrase, cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Nobody ever sits there watching a Tom and Jerry cartoon and goes, there's a guy there drawing this, and it's at 16 frames a second, and there is no logical way in quantum physics that a mouse can come down a drain pipe and run across. Nobody's doing that. They're just
Right.
watching Tom and Jerry. It's believable on a different cognitive basis.
And in the context of that art world, that artistic world that has been created, it all makes absolute sense.
Yes, I think this is it. Well, we're coming up to, I think, just about usually the time we have on these. There is so much we have not covered. Well, I'd love to do that another time if we can, schedules permitting and all
Absolutely.
the
This
rest of
is
it.
delightful.
What I want to do now is kind of open it up and have folks, if you're interested, put your mics on, and you can chat directly with Tobias. And if you don't want to do that and just want to type something and chat, you can do that now, and I'll ask him. So let's just open it up.
I agree with a lot, as you would realise with me nodding. Yes, I agree with an awful lot that you said. I think one of the problems I find now with the younger generation, they didn't know the theatre, and this
Yeah.
is a massive problem. They don't know how to project themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to, you said about you don't want you to be you. Yes, in a way, but it's got to be the you that you are projecting.
Yes.
I never shy away from the fact that I'm a lady in magic. And believe
Mm-hmm.
me, I can get away with far more than a man can.
Ah,
And I have done.
yes.
I came off stage on one occasion and I was asked, how on earth did you get away with that?
Ah,
I said, because I'm a cheeky woman.
exactly.
I think I was very fortunate. I was very enthusiastic about theatre before I ever came into magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a chance to be with a lot of the pros. Not the top line pros, but the working
Yeah.
pros.
Yeah.
And one of them, in fact, I don't know whether you know the name of Brian Burden. Albert Burden was a North Country
I've heard it. Yeah.
guy, and I had the pleasure of knowing Brian. And this was the guys who had, Brian had gone on and done his father's act for his father, sort of thing. And I learnt an awful lot from that variety theatre background,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I used to go over to the seaside over here and go to the summer shows and things like that. And I
You had a
learnt a
lot more of
lot
that
about
than we ever did
magic.
in America, too. You
Yeah.
were lucky in that
Yeah.
sense. It lasted longer.
But it was, you're saying about, oh, I'm a semi-pro. Well, my answer to that is, okay, well, get off the stage until you're professional enough to perform.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's okay to be a part-time pro, but not a
that I'm a
halfway pro.
part-time pro.
Yes, exactly.
You've got to be professional to be on stage.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, and I think a lot of it is, I only caught the end of theatre, but it has stood me in very, very good stead.
Yes.
And I think a lot of them, how can I put it? They enjoy doing the tricks, but they don't know how to put the personality into the tricks.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I think it's fine to just enjoy doing the tricks and do it. as long as you're doing it at the Magic Club or for your
Mm.
friends, it's
Yeah.
not all right to get on stage and represent the world of magic if you don't get it.
No, this
Because
is it.
as Tony said, we all represent the whole world, which means all of us.
Mm.
And so let's give it the respect and that it deserves.
Yeah. I mean, I'm well known for not using packs of cards or decks of cards, as you call them now.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
not natural in our world. Yes, the guys at work at lunchtime they'd sit down, have the sandwich, and have a couple of hands of cards. So it
Yeah.
was quite normal for them to have a pack of cards with them.
Right.
It isn't normal for a woman to open her handbag and pull out a pack of cards in my
Right.
world.
Mm.
Right.
I will use the SP cards. I'll use picture cards.
Hmm.
I've even used snap cards and things like that.
Yeah.
That because I can open my bag and say, "Oh, what the heck are the children leaving in my bag?" You
Yeah.
know.
Well,
Exactly.
speaking of cards, you jogged my memory on something, and this will amuse the heck out of Tobias, I think, because of his close association with Jeff. When I first met him, as I was saying earlier on, at Jonathan's Halloween party, whatever he had, AJ, and she's gone, Johnny Spinner introduced me to Jeff,
Mhm.
and then we got started, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry I missed your lecture." And I said, "Well, everybody told me I was an idiot to lecture in Vegas. I did it. I did it anyway. I didn't care. I just did it. But
Yeah.
it was quite good. I think so, from what everybody said. And Christian edged me on. You know what I'm talking about. Christian said to me, "No, do
Yeah.
it, do it, do it,
Mm.
do it." And Jason
Yeah.
Andrews said, "Yeah, do it, do it." So I did. Anyway, Jeff says to me, "I'm
Yeah.
sorry I missed your lecture, but..." And here's the thing: people talk, and I promise you faithfully, hand on heart, this is what Jeff said to me. He said, "I heard it was pretty good, but..." He said, "Your force, I've never heard of it. And stunning." I said, "Yeah, but you weren't there. What are you talking about?" He said, "Oh, no, that's what I was told." And I went, "Oh, wow." And I'm not a card man. I'm not a cardician. Um,
Right.
yeah, I'll do a few things with cards, and that's about it. Um, and I said, "Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much." He then said to me, "Show me." And I said, "What?" He said, "Show me." I'm like, "Okay, this is Jeff McBride asking me to show him something."
Hmm.
And I said, "You're kidding, right?" And he said, "No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. I want to know what this is. I've been waiting all evening to come and ask you about it."
Yeah.
I said, "All right. The problem is I don't have a deck of cards with me." He said, "That's all right." And he was in that phase where he carried pouches, like
He's
about
still in
400.
that phase.
Is he? Yeah, he
Mm.
carried
Yes.
about 495 pouches around this belt. I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating to make a point. He reaches in and he
Mm.
pulls out this deck, which must have had 495 cards in it. And I said, "It's about that thick. Cut off half of them." And I got to spread it and had a look. And he said, "Oh, they're not in order. They're all..." He's obviously set them up for something.
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, it doesn't matter." So there we are on a cold 31st of October night in Las Vegas. The mountains are not blocking the wind. I don't have an overcoat because I wasn't expecting it to get that cold.
Hmm.
And there's Jeff McBride and me on a flatbed truck. I'm showing him the Pythagoras force. And he went, "Can I use that?" Oh, well, yeah. you know, I
Yeah.
wasn't quite in the fanboy stage because I was old enough, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I acknowledged, the man's
Mm.
greatness, which you do anyway.
Yeah.
It's a matter of
Mm.
respect and courtesy. So
Yeah.
that was that. So yeah, sometimes you just don't know who's saying what to whom.
Mm.
As I
Exactly.
often say
Yeah.
to my students as well,
Yeah.
you never know who is in that audience. That could be your next big gig.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Or become your best friend in magic, because I mean there are people like Jeff and Penn Jillette and Teller and
Yeah,
hang out.
we
Johnny
just
Thompson and Paul
yeah.
Vigil used to stop by at Jeff's house at 11 o'clock at night after one of our master classes and trade things like, "Here's a cool force I saw. Oh, I saw," and
Yeah. Well,
they are so
Paul,
excited
yeah, dear Paul,
24/7.
I'm very, very good friends with his mom, Janelle. Paul, it's a ritual. Every time I'm in Vegas, I end up in Paul's apartment for the afternoon because Christian goes, I'll take you there. And I ain't staying. I ain't staying. Because Paul will go through an entire thing and he'll go, what do you think of this? What do you think? But Paul, you're asking me what I think of it? Come on. No, I want you to tell me what you think of it. When he's done with that, he'll get his guitars out. And when he's done with that, let us say we will sit there between effects and guitars. Try this. And what do you think of that? And then go, try this. What do you think of that? And all I'm going to say is that whatever it is we were trying involved rolling it in paper and lighting it at the other end.
Well, that's Paul's.
If you knew Paul, you'll know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of that, but at the same token, I mean, I've got nothing against it. Used it myself to ease the back pain, stuff like that. But to each his own. But that's the kind of thing, as you say, with Paul. Yeah, that card stab he does. He's taken what Johnny taught him because he looked at Johnny like a father. I mean,
he did. Absolutely.
Johnny was a great influence. I mean, never really, I met him, but I don't know him, if you know what I mean. I never really got close to him as I've done with some other folks. But Paul would regale me with stories about Johnny. And as you were saying, these guys just show up, and go, what do you think of this? And how do you handle that? And whatever, so it happens that way. Paul,
and they're some of the greatest minds in magic, but the reason they're the greatest minds is that they are so passionate.
Yes.
Yes. People used to say, how do I get to be another Jeff McBride? I said, well, you need about 26 hours a day and to stop sleeping and do nothing but magic for about 20 years, and then you'll be the next Jeff McBride.
But there again, I think you've got to make sure that they don't become a Jeff McBride.
Right.
We had when I was over in New Zealand, I was with the Magic Club over there, and we had a kid who joined the club. Well, I say kid, he was 14, I think, at that stage when he first joined us, and he's very, very keen on magic. So his dad used to bring him down to the club, and he was very keen, and I hope he went on to do great things in later years. I don't know because I'm not there now. But the problem we had with him, and this is where it comes to being yourself, we always knew which DVD he'd been watching that month. And not only by the tricks that he was doing, but basically, if you were doing a trick and you scratched your nose sort of thing, he was doing it.
Yeah.
Halfway through the trick, he would suddenly do that because that's what the magician did. And we had to sort of gently tell this kid, look, yes, learn the routine.
Right.
Say Sean Farquhar had put out a DVD and he'd taken the DVD and he'd learnt it really, really well. Yes. But he'd learnt it every single move, and as I said, if you went like that, he went like that.
Exactly.
Hang on a minute. Yes, it's Sean's routine, but it's your presentation.
Right.
And again, I think it goes back to theatre.
Eugene used to say, it's fine to do it exactly the way they sold it until you've got it.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it has to say something to you. You have to say something to it. It becomes more than just the trick you bought.
Yeah, well, this is it. But one thing I did learn from the theatre crews that I was able to be with backstage and what have you, and a thing that has always stood me in very good stead before I go on stage or whatever I'm doing. And it was one of the old pros that said it. There was a bit of a fracas backstage, and one of them said, "Oh, another bloody show." And the old pro turned round. He said, "Hang on a minute." He says, "It might be another bloody show for you. For somebody out there, it's first night."
Absolutely.
Sage words from that.
Yes, it was.
I got to work on.
I've never forgotten that. And
Right.
before I do any shows, I take a minute to remember that.
I got to work on the first Sweeney Todd production with Angela Lansbury in it. And I was a production assistant. I got to hang out with her backstage. And after we'd been doing the show, she did a year in New York and then a year and a half on the road. And this was probably 18 months into the show, and it just got better every night. And I said, I studied acting. I was production assistant. I wasn't acting. But I've got to know because I've seen other Broadway shows that go on for 6 months, and some of the actors are phoning it in. They're just saying the lines with the
Yeah.
but they're not there. And you and George Hearn and this cast gets better every. She said, well, first of all, you're only an artist if you're in it. To be there every night for the moment and think new things happen every
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
She said the second thing is Stephen Sondheim wrote an amazing show, and we find new things in the script every night. A year and a half into the show, this is, 600 performances, but they were still looking for this nuance. Oh, he used that word so I could respond. So they were totally alive every night in the performance, and it showed.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, I think that, as you've rightly said, Barbie, and indeed to Tobias, it's this feeling of going out there, and it doesn't matter. An example that springs to mind is dear Michael Finney. Now, he's been doing this card on the forehead again since Noah built the ark.
Yeah.
But you know what? People book him for that. They know what's going to happen. They know how it's going to happen. They don't know when it happens, but that's what he gets booked for over and over and over, just for that.
Yeah.
But every time you watch him do it, he's doing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Right.
That takes a ton of skill
Yeah.
to be able to do that. Anything.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's a hot rod,
Right.
if you're doing it, and as Tobias said earlier on, this passion is there with that hot rod, it happens. What story are you telling? Is it about King Solomon's mines and jewels? Is it about traffic lights? Is whatever? Is it stolen rubies from Burma? Or what's it called now? Myanmar, or whatever it is. The hot rod is just merely there to take it. And this is a good phrase you used. It's the first night for somebody, and a lot of somebodies out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they're paying you good money and giving you their time. It's kind of shortchanging them if you don't give them a first night.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember, and I wrote about this in an article. It's on my website if anybody wants to look for it under media, for MUM in February of 2008. And dear Steve, no, he prefers Banachek now, was on the cover. And it's called Magical Ethics. And I put the story in there because I'm propping up the bar at the Magic Circle with Pat Page and Alan Allen. I mean, two names that are just unbelievable. And we get round to talking about stuff kind of like we're doing now. And then Alan Allen told me a story. And I used that story and I put it in the article to do with magical ethics. Magical ethics. Channing Pollock. Apparently, Alan's telling the story, obviously. And he said, well, he was talking to Channing and he said to him, doesn't it ever upset you that so many people are copying your act? Right down to, as you were saying, Bobby, the movements, the whole, the tails, dressing tails, and so on. And apparently Channing said to him, well, yes, it did. It upset me a great deal. It did. And then Alan Allen, during this conversation with Channing, said to him, what made you change? He said, I sat down one day and I thought to myself, they can copy me all they want, but they will never know what I'm thinking when I'm doing it. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know somebody who actually videoed the whole of Terry Seabrook's act. and he learnt it word for word, patter for patter, and everything. And if you knew Terry, bless him,
Yes, I did.
very dear friend, lovely, lovely man. Nobody could be Terry. And his idea was he was going to do everything that Terry did, but he wasn't
No,
Terry.
no,
No, you can't.
you can't do it.
Yeah.
He had this wonderful column in the old MUM when it was in its good old days with Dave Goodsell and, dare I say, people who really knew what they were doing and how to put a magazine together. Yeah, I've said it because I've actually said it to other people who followed Dave, so I have no problems with anyone calling me out on this, and I have the receipts. Anyway, neither here nor there. Yeah, yes, I know. It was, he was there in New Orleans. Yeah, you remember that, Paul? Yeah, I remember being in Gary Hughes's house, and Gary had just finished his SAM presidency. It was Dan Garrett, Carol, Terry Hughes, and Michelle, and there's Terry sitting in the pool, not sitting, standing in the pool, smoking his pipe. And there's Dan on. I mean, these are the kind of things, don't mind sharing it. I would never share it publicly, obviously, but amongst us, it's all right. And these were the kind of great characters at the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Terry, when he did introductions as well, he was a nice guy, wonderful, a brilliant magician, great ideas and everything else. But I actually told him this once. I said, "You're a rubbish MC." And he said, "Well, they didn't tell me what to say." And I went, "Oh, fair point. Fair point." So I always said to my students, write out your stuff. Give one to the stage manager. Give one to the MC. Have a spare one in your bag just in case. So they've got it. If you don't give it to them, they're going to make up stuff or say nothing. And Terry would always kind of like, "Oh, and the next act is John Smith."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
John Smith's still like loading the birds,
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things we teach the masterclass students is write out your intro card.
Yep.
You need a 50-word intro, and it's a sign of being a professional.
Yep.
Get it printed. If you have a name that they could mispronounce, do the phonetic pronunciation.
Yep.
And because if you don't, they go, "Well, here's another magician. Hold on to your wallets."
Yeah.
Or
your watch. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we'll have Paul come in with a few words, I hope.
It's interesting because I just took a few notes, but I remember some of the negativity that I learned from. One, very briefly, very famous stage performer. He would come out and do a fast-paced intro. Then he would stop and say, "I'm so-and-so, and my job is to fool you, and your job is to figure out how." That goes away. That, to me, is the epitome of what I never wanted to do. Does that make
Right. But it can make an interesting story. If you know that's the story you want to tell. Did I fool you? Oh, how you can turn that into something interesting. Too many magicians don't. They just, well, it's also they're creating,
And
Penn
antagonism.
Jillette calls it, "I know how this is done, and you're a schmuck," is
Yeah.
the message that you're sending then.
Yeah.
And that's not a message I want to send. But
I was virtually always a restaurant performer, close up, and I was never the superior. I was just sort of a guy there, and it's interesting be on the same level with them. And people enjoyed that. They would bring their friends back. To me,
absolutely.
I was okay. That was good.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I recently wrote something, I think, online that, why do you watch your favorite sitcom? You don't care what happens. You just want to spend time with those people. Be somebody they want to spend time with. And that goes a long way.
And I think I would add respectfully to that.
Yeah.
Wonderful sage wisdom. Less is more. We've all seen that.
Yeah.
People get caught up in the moment and they may be begging you, don't do it. Absolutely leave them wanting more. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And if you're a writer with an editor, you know that.
Yep.
Half of what I write actually makes it into the books.
Well, that's a way of most
And they're
stuff.
better because of that.
Yes, because we're back to that, a director looking at
Yeah,
something objectively, which an actor or a performer just cannot do.
yeah.
We just do it and would think we're very good at it, but we're not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Paul was rightly saying, there's much to be learned from, shall we say, euphemistically, well, not euphemistically, come right out and say it. There's a lot to be learned from someone else's mistakes. You watch it and you go, yeah, that's definitely something I shouldn't be doing
Hmm.
or want to do
Yeah.
or get involved in. Actually, what I want to do before we kind of sign off shortly is I should have it. I'm a dreadful host. I didn't do it. I meant to, but I didn't for some reason. I'll blame it on the dog. Yep, that's good. Yeah.
Good.
Give me a list of your books. I know this is the latest one, Wired.
Oh, let's see. The first
Wired.
one was Beyond Deception, Volume 1, which was
Yep.
about creativity and theatricality. The second, Beyond Deception, Volume 2, was a collection. We had been doing the Monday night show, and I was doing a 2-minute Wizard's Corner every week with just a quote. Let's talk about character. Let's talk about packing your bags. And I turned those into essays. That became Beyond Deception number 2. And then I wrote The Wizard's Way, which was going to be about magicians, but turned out to be about real wizards. People starting with the character of Merlin, going through Mohandas Gandhi, a woman in San Francisco, Mary Ellen Pleasant, who was worth $30 million during the Civil War. And
Wow.
and then went on to Einstein and several other kids, and it ended with Steve Jobs. But it was about wizards are people who are passionate, curious, curious, and learn to think about the world differently. They think about it different than what we're taught to think about it. And that's why they're able to change the world in major ways. And that was Wizards. Then I did Wizard's Way for powerful presentations, which I really wrote as kind of I mean, it's a 100-page business card promoting myself to teach people to do better presentations. I was living in Silicon Valley and teaching people to pitch their startups, and that was kind of my business card. But it's an okay book. And then I did Beyond Applause, which was everything I knew at that point after 30 years of working with Jeff and Marco that I wished I had known when I started working with them about building a business in magic and what it takes to be a good business person. And and then I did The Performer's Edge, which is about why business people should learn from magicians and actors and what we have to teach them about transformation and changing and thinking different. And then this book, Wired for Wonder, which is about theater and business. It's all the different, or theater and magic, all the different ways magic can be theater, from strolling to street magic to big theaters to whatever. And then how do you create a dramatic story with your magic? How do you, that kind of thing. So basically what we've been talking about here tonight, because I'm
Well,
still thinking about it.
yeah, here's a nice comment as well from Lance Burton. Magic is a form. This from your book. Magic is a form of theater where the magic is the actor, and the magic is the script. Now, kind of go, hey, that's a cute phrase. Yes, it is, but it is so loaded
Yes.
between the words.
So many of those quotes. It's
Oh,
like one sentence and you
wow,
go, well, I
wow.
could do a whole book about that.
Yeah. And this nice one. What you should. This is a nice one from Ricky Jay. The magician is an actor playing the part of a wizard. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. If that
Yeah.
came from me or somebody else, that would be like, that's okay. Yeah, very cute phrase. But coming from Ricky Jay, and if you're a magician of whatever caliber,
Yes.
that is really totally stunning.
Yes.
And the thing, of course, I mean, you quote, people like Cyril Thorndike, and so on. Now, if
Mhm.
someone wanted to get hold of some of your books, they're all on Amazon. If they wanted to get your titles, they should just
Yes.
get in touch with you, probably through Facebook, I guess.
They should. You can also just look up Tobias Beckwith on Amazon and it will list all of my books
Oh,
and
that easy.
give
Oh,
you links.
fair enough.
That's the easiest way.
Okay, that's
So,
good. Yeah, they
yeah.
can do that. Yeah.
But there's
Okay.
also links from tobiasbeckwith.com, which is my main website, or yourmagic.com, which is my website for magicians. So
Okay. To
you
get
you can also, drop me a line on Facebook or in any of those. I'm there.
okay.
Or email me. If you got the yourmagic.com, it's Tobias at yourmagic.com. It's
Oh, that easy. Fair
pretty
enough.
easy to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think so because I think your books are of great importance to this particular performing art, and
Mm.
in a way extends out to just everyday business and other performing arts.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
The
always said,
longer I live, the more I can see that everything is connected.
oh, absolutely. The Lakota people who I have some links with have a phrase, mitakoyu oyasan, which kind of loosely translated means we are all related. So, like my name, Darkstone, where did that come from? That came from my maternal grandfather, whose actual full name was Keeper of the Stones That Are Dark, which are
Yeah.
together. And I have Eugene to thank for that because it was at that dinner
Fantastic.
where he suggested it. So,
Ah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. He had this way of when he spoke to you,
Yes.
he made you feel you were the only person. He would just put his hand, I mean, you know this better than I, he would put his hand on your
Arm or
arm
shoulder.
like that and just kind of lean in. And he meant it. It
He
came from the
did.
heart.
Well, he was also, that was one of the great secrets of his performing, was he always connected.
Yes.
If he asked you a question, he was going to wait until you gave him an answer
Yes.
and respond to your answer. It was real. It was a real connection. It wasn't faked at
No, it
all.
wasn't. It was real. It was a very kind man because at that,
Mm.
that, that dinner I mentioned earlier on, I mean, think about this, He was like doing me a favor, and obviously my brother, who was 50 at the time, 50th birthday, bore me in Eugene. Wow, great, like a
Mhm.
10-year-old kid. But Eugene had taken the trouble to actually prepare an effect, which he did for everybody, but mainly for me because the selected card had my name written on the back.
Right.
Now, that
Yeah.
took time, thoughtfulness, and
Mhm.
kindness.
Yes.
I have a
Yeah.
picture somewhere of that, leaning in with a card with the name on it. And these are things I think that make for quality people.
Yeah.
They make for quality people.
Yeah.
And as Bobby was mentioning earlier on, some of the younger, well, everybody's younger for us, aren't they? Some of
Yes.
the younger magicians don't have that kind of great connection. You
Right.
don't get to have a beer with, Alan Allen. Pat Page was a dear family friend and a
Mhm.
mentor to me for many, many, many years. And he saved my son's act at Blackpool. Well, that's a story for another time.
Yeah.
He is just, I don't know, how do you phrase it? Real gentleman, I suppose, is the word
Absolutely.
or words.
Yeah.
That's what they were.
Yeah.
You went up to them and they never kind of, brushed you off. Mind you, none of them, to the best of my knowledge anyway, suffered fools gladly.
No.
But
No.
if they were approached correctly, then and given the due courtesy and respect that they had earned, then
Right.
they were just happy to do whatever.
I think this is the thing with the modern technology, though.
Mm.
I think modern technology has got a lot to answer for.
Oh, very,
Yes.
very much so.
Especially this one. Well, you can't see it against my background, but it's a
Oh yeah,
phone.
yeah,
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 Yeah. Isn't that
yeah,
yeah.
interesting?
I
It's
mean,
the vanishing
it,
phone trick.
yeah.
like
It
all,
amazes me. Oh, sorry, go on.
no, I was just going to say it's okay. Like all things, new technology, AI, all these things are
Mm.
quite good. and have changed the world in ways that we cannot even begin to imagine.
What amazes me at the moment, though, is the amount of people who are doing magic with smartphones. Well, it's called a smartphone for a reason. It can do everything by, like, sort of, it's crazy. And then
that was
they're
actually,
saying, "Oh, take out your, I got on my smartphone. I did this," and I'm thinking, yeah, well, they know it's a smartphone. So what?
right.
I think a lot of what we did in our generation, because we're 2 generations on almost now. But what we did in our generation, a lot of it, of the modern stuff, if you look at it, you sort of think, oh, well, that was such and such a thing.
Right.
And of course the kids today, you sort of say to them, well, go back and read a few of the books. What? If you read it in a book, you get your own presentation. If you watch DVD, you get their presentation.
Exactly.
It's not exactly the greatest word to use, but I will use it. Favorite. That's my favorite. Henry Hay. The Amateur Magician's
It's certainly among my favorites.
There is nothing amateur about this book.
No.
Nothing. The amount of things that I've learned. I mean, as you can see, it's marked in so many places. There isn't a time when I'm not referring to it for something. And I'm not copying anything exactly that he's got down there, but it's opened it up. I mean, something I read here made me create my own book test, which is original to me. And that's it. And you were saying with phones, okay, I'm biased. I'll admit it. I just don't think it's magic.
No.
People kind of go, yeah, so you reveal my card on it, or you knew what time I was thinking on my watch, or whatever it is you use.
Right.
Well, I don't know how it works. I don't really care because it's an app on your phone.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
I was proud of my friend Marco Tempest.
That's a different technology. A different technology.
Well, the day the iPhone was released, he made a YouTube video of himself standing in front of the line of people waiting for it. He said, I was first in line this morning and did 6 tricks with the iPhone on the day it was released. He poured Coca-Cola out of it. He used it to shave. He tossed a coin in it and caught it and put it. All of these effects later on were sold by other people. But he did them the day the iPhone came out before.
Yeah.
And then he let it go. And he did some other things
that was
with
good
it.
marketing. Yeah, it was good marketing.
Well, this is it.
And fun, creative magic the day the iPhone. But then he never did any of it again because it was old hat.
Yeah, but he didn't need to, seeing some of his stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. You got to have that kind of Marco Tempest brain and temperament to be able to create all that stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how planes stay in the air.
It's magic, obviously.
Well, exactly. Let me give you the logic. This stuff weighs how many tons?
Right, and they say it's because the wings curve. I don't buy it.
Wind and whatever and the stuff, and I'm going.
It's magic.
I'm sorry, I can't figure it out. I have a fairly good grasp of quantum physics,
right?
But I'm still kind of like, how did it stay up there? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come to this wonderful time where we have to wrap. And before I do, I need to say a very huge thanks and express immense appreciation to dear Tobias for
thank you.
And
back at you.
Oh, thank you, sir. More than welcome. But I do appreciate it, and that you've made the time to come up and do this. So thank you so much, Tobias.
My pleasure.
Hopefully we will touch base again, as they say.
We certainly will. Nice to meet you, Paul. Thanks for coming in tonight. This was delightful. Thanks so much, Anthony.
No, thank you so much.
It's
absolutely wonderful. Enjoyed it. Take it easy, and
you too.
We will talk soon. Have a great
night.
Have a great week.
Now.